difference between augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. It is a range of experiences. On one hand, we have virtual reality, which is a total immersive experience where you put on a headset and you are disconnected from your environment. Everything you see and interact is a 3D generated object. And on the other hand, for augmented reality, you have a connection to your environment, like in HoloLens, and you have some extra information, maybe 3D or maybe audio information that's available to you, which is augmenting your reality. Also, we have mobile phone applications like Pokemon Go. You are looking through the glass of your phone and you're able to find 3D objects in the real world. And this whole range of experiences we call mixed reality. And short, it's called XR.
Yeah, hi, Ricardo.
Hi there.
So I had another session before with enterprise business remote support, and I think this one will be more fun, or?
Yeah, it will be definitely a bit more easygoing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, and then we can start your session.
Sure. So my name is Ricardo Costa. I used to work for Microsoft for a long time. I worked in the HoloLens team since almost the very beginning of everything. And yeah, like a year ago, I decided to move on and start my own company that is based on creating games, more specifically, the game that we are going to be talking about today. I've been interested in VR since the first Oculus DK1. I fell in love with it from the very first moment I tried it. I'm a UX designer. I've been using the computer to design things for all my career. But the moment that I put a headset on, I just fell in love with the thing. I thought that it was going to be the future, and I wanted to focus my career on that. And yeah, I pretty much did that. So I've been working on this since 6 years ago now, in fully in VR and MR and HoloLens and stuff. And yeah, today here, I'm gonna share you my experience designing this game. We're gonna talk about the company side of the game. We're gonna talk about how to design a UX, a proper UX in VR, and all that stuff.
Yeah, great. Sounds interesting.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, you can share your screen, and
Yes.
I'll bring it up here.
Hold on. Okay. All right. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Okay, unplugged, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so the game is called Unplugged Air Guitar. It is a game about playing air guitar. So in this game, you play a guitar, like in Guitar Hero, but you don't need any controllers or anything. The game is already released. We released it a month ago, and it's going pretty well. If you don't know anything about the game, we're going to go through that right now. Well, I had this little slide about who I am. If you want to know, if you want to contact me somehow, you have my email there, you have my Behance there, where you can see all the designs that I've done before. If you want to know anything about Unplugged VR, that's the Twitter. This picture, by the way, is a bit old, but I really like it. So I just updated it a little bit. So now I have some grays and everything, but I really like the picture and I wanted just to keep it there. So yeah, this is the game. It's called Unplugged Air Guitar, and this is pretty much what it is. So this is the video trailer. Hold on. It's just a minute.
Looks like we see just your desktop background. There's unplugged with.
Sorry?
I think we just see your desktop background.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Let me check if I can just like play it here. Can you see it now?
Because I see the Windows icon here and unplugged in the middle of a screen with a little bit gray and so on, but no email and no Twitter.
So you can't see the video?
No, maybe stop your sharing once and then.
Oh, bummer.
Share.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not sure why videos are not showing up in the screen. But yeah, in that case, let's continue. So, well, let me just like tell you how is the game. It's pretty much like you get notes and you have a guitar that is not really there. It's just like a virtual guitar, so you don't need anything. It's just using your hand tracking. So it is pretty much you just like move and do air guitar right away. And it feels pretty awesome. It's like playing Guitar Hero, but you don't need a plastic guitar or anything. Just your Oculus headset, and that's it. And yeah, that is pretty much the game. I'm not sure why these videos are not working, but yeah. Can you see this video though? Hello?
Oh. We just see this empty desktop so far. Maybe I can stop this.
Yeah, hold on. Not sure.
Maybe if you stop your sharing, and restart it.
Yeah, I'll do that. Oh, that's so weird.
Or just share this document application.
So, what about now? Can you see that?
Yeah, now I see a lot more. Your StreamYard, and you can switch to the PowerPoint. Yes, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. It's still there on the presentation?
Yeah, still there.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, picture. This is the game. Can you see the video now?
Yes, all fine.
Awesome. All right. So this is the game. Let me put some. All right. Okay. So did you? It was the video worked fine this time, right? Okay. Okay. So how we got the idea? We got this idea like in 2012, a long time ago now, when we did like some initial prototypes using a phone. So we've been, interested in rhythm games for a long time. This is like me, playing this old prototype where you could just use your phone as a flute, and also in this prototype you could also play like a guitar using your phone. Unfortunately, I never finished this game, and it was kind of like in my heart, it was like killing me. But a few years ago, I started another one. Like when I first tried VR for the first time, because I had this other project unfinished, I was kind of like, I felt guilt. So I decided to try and do another one, but this time using VR. So in 2015, I created this another prototype called Rock the Stage, where you could do like you could play the guitar using a controller. So it's pretty much like this. This is a prototype like from a long time ago. But you could, play the guitar, and it felt really good. The only problem is that you had to use controllers, which back in the day wasn't a problem. But the thing is, like, even though the idea was nice, I never finished it, and I now have kind of like a trauma with not finishing things. So at some point in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, with all these unfinished projects in my back, I was bored at home, as everyone else, right? Like, we had a lot of time in our hands, and Oculus added hand tracking to the Oculus Quest. So I started to get curious about it, because I thought like maybe I could add this hand tracking new technology to my old prototype from 2015. So I did a few things, and I make it work like in a week or so, and I finally got a prototype working. The prototype is this one. So now it's fairly the same game that I showed you before, but now I'm here just using the hands. So I'm not using any controllers or anything. So with this prototype, I put this video on Reddit, and people really like it. Like, this video kind of exploded, and a lot of people started contacting us saying like, "Hey, this is a very good idea. Maybe you should, think about starting this project for real and making it for real." So yeah, at some point we thought like, yeah, maybe we do have something good between our hands. Like, this could be a game that is profitable, and we could actually create a business out of the game, since we had a lot of attention. So the first thing that we did is thinking about how we were going to pay for all this. So if we wanted to create this company, we needed money to do that. I was working on Microsoft at that point, and I wasn't sure if like I should just like leave this dream job in order to do something in my own, because it was very risky and and complicated. It could be very complicated. So we started thinking about like maybe we should start a Kickstarter and maybe get some money out of it. And yeah, at some point it looked like a good idea, but the problem is that it is a lot of work, and I didn't have that amount of time in my hands, since I was working for another company. So someone suggested on Twitter that like maybe you could just like try to get a publisher. Maybe a publisher is interested on the game. And then we started working on a budget. So it's like, okay, if we're going to contact a real company about doing this for real, then how much is it? So we started thinking and putting numbers on an Excel file, and creating a budget. We're not very good at creating budgets. Like, I'm a UX designer, and even though I have done budgets for small projects in the past, doing this is not an easy thing. But we spent like a few weeks just putting user stories and listing out all the features and trying to estimate every single feature and every single task. And we asked it like a lot of professional people that are doing these things like all the time. So we, at the end of the day, we had a nice budget, like a fairly realistic budget of how much development would cost. In any case, like, we were thinking very small back in the day. Like, we were thinking about like, like asking for a few thousands, and not thinking about having famous music at all, like having a very, very small team of 1 or 2 people, something very, very small. We all obviously had to add like all the expenses, like lawyer expenses that we weren't actually sure about how much we were going to use a lawyer. at the end, like we had to, like lawyers are extremely important when you're creating a company, and they are very expensive. So, but yeah, like the thing is, like we created this very nice and simple budget, and then we created a prototype. In my career, I guess as a UX designer, maybe it's because I'm not English native, so I've always struggled to express myself in order to express my ideas to a room of people, and fight for those ideas in English. So from the very beginning of my career, especially when I started working in English, I realized that I needed some tools in order to express myself properly because my wording weren't good enough. So at some point, I decided that like prototyping and showing ideas, like showing the real idea to someone, was the easier way to illustrate an idea. So I started specializing myself into prototyping. So the way I design is always through prototyping. So you would never see any of my designs in just a napkin or a Figma file. I think that all these tools are good if you're a designer, but I don't think that they are good enough if you are designing, VR stuff. Especially because, like in VR nowadays, we have very little resources, especially design resources. So I always prototype my ideas. So in this case, I wanted to do the same. I wanted to create a little prototype so we can show to publishers, and publishers might be interested or not, but they would know clearly what was our intention, like what we wanted to create. So we spent some time into creating this prototype. I think that it took us like a couple of months or something like that. We created a fully working prototype, so you could actually play the game. You could only play just one song, and everything else was kind of like a mock-up, but it felt like the final game, and we put like a big effort on that. So with that prototype, we also prepared a pitch. So this pitch is like we try to make it look super nice. If you are preparing a pitch to a company, like if it's a game pitch or is it like any other pitch, I think it should always look nice, and it shouldn't be very long. In our case, it was like 9 pages, like around 9 pages, but we put a good effort into make it look like really nice. So yeah, when we had the pitch and the prototype, we sent it over to a few publishers, and actually most of them replied to us, and they were interested on this thing. But luckily, we got attracted, or like we got the attraction of Vertigo Games, that is one of the most important publishers in the VR world, and that was amazing. They created Arizona Sunshine, and now they are about to release after the fall that is one of the, or hopefully will be one of the most important games in this year in terms of sales and hype. Like a lot of people are really hyped about the game, and yeah, like Vertigo Games was a great publisher, and they were interested in us. So we had a few meetings with them, like trying to have an agreement in place, like, hey, how much are we going to give us? Like, how much is going to be, how many royalties we are going to get? Like a normal publishing agreement. And then the actual agreement, like the actual document, had to be done. So we had to light the lawyer up, and it took us like a couple of months, I would say even more, to actually sign the agreement, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of meeting with them, a lot of meeting with your lawyer. It was pretty intense. So hopefully, luckily after all this paperwork, we had everything ready. So it was the right time to start teaming up with other people. At this moment, it was just like me designing everything, and my wife doing producing work. And at some point, we had to find a team in order to do all this stuff. Creating a team out of scratch is really complicated. Like we tried to find people in a lot of different platforms, but the problem is that finding the right people is very complicated, especially nowadays in VR. I'm saying this because if you are a company that have like a few VR developers, just keep in mind that like there are not many VR developers in the world. It's really complicated to find one nowadays. So for us, it was obviously as complicated as everyone else. But we were super lucky to hire 2 developers. Like both of them were junior because we couldn't afford like more senior staff, and also because finding senior developers in VR is really, really complicated. We also had, because this is a music game, and I myself, I don't play the guitar. I'm learning now, but I don't play the guitar yet, so I don't know all the technicalities of music. So we knew that we had to hire at least one musician, like one very good guitar player, so he can advise us like what to do, or how to how to include all the music in here, because there are like a lot of technicalities in a rhythm game that we weren't aware of. So we hired this person. We hired an art guy, and we hired a few testing people. We developed the game with this team. We were 7 or 8 at some point. There was like a few missing guys from here, and I'm super proud of this. Like, I think it is amazing what we did, considering like the very small team we had. We also had another team on Vertigo Games. It's like the marketing team, the production team, and we also were really lucky because the game idea spread like fire, like really quickly, and we got the attraction of Marcus Henderson. That was one of the well, not developer, but he was one of the producers on Guitar Hero. So he was involved on Guitar Hero 1 and Guitar Hero 2, and I think in Guitar Hero 3 as well. So he called us and he told us like, hey, I really like this game. I really like this idea. I want to be part of it. So we also hired him on the game, and we were extremely hyped about it because like we are obviously massive fans of Guitar Hero, and having someone as important as Marcus from Guitar Hero, that was amazing. That was amazing. So yeah, like at the end of the day, like a lot of people have worked in Unplugged, and it has been amazing to see how the team grew from just a couple of guys to like a lot of people involved, like more and more professional staff doing more and more professional work. Has been really amazing. I'm super proud of the team, and I'm really proud of what we created together. So now we had the team. We had the problem of developing the real thing, right? That is a very different thing, creating a prototype than creating a real product. And even though I have worked in many real products, the latest one that I have, well, for instance, I worked on Paint 3D. I don't know if you use it actually, but it's probably installed in your computer. Paint 3D was a Microsoft program that tried to democratize 3D for everyone. So it's kind of like a version of MS Paint, where you can also create 3D stuff. I've also worked on Microsoft Maquette. That is a VR prototyping tool that I'm going to talk about a little bit about it later. So I know how hard it is to create these things, even though I have worked on prototypes in like most of my career. I have also worked in real products, and I know that they are two very different things. Creating something that works and you can create a video out of it and put it online or show it to an investor, that is fairly easy. But creating the final product, like with, like polishing every single part of the product, especially in VR, it is a very hard thing. So yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about designing a hand tracking game. If you know something about the current state of the VR world, you would see that there are like not many hand tracking experiences. I would say that like there are like a few more in the HoloLens world, because like HoloLens doesn't support controllers nowadays. But most of the apps in HoloLens are very simple in terms of the interaction. They're usually like point and click. So you just like click on buttons and the app will just show you some data. But if you want to create something like a game using hand tracking, it is not as easy, especially in our idea, because our idea used hand tracking very intensively. Like hand tracking nowadays, it doesn't work perfectly well, right? Like not in HoloLens, not in Oculus, not in anywhere. Like interacting with a computer using your hands, it is tricky because our hands are very complicated things, and tracking them is very complicated. No matter what sensor you use, it is going to be very complicated. So it is going to be limited somehow. So imagine that you, like when you are, and I want to explain the difference a little bit. So pretty much when you are creating an app for a computer, like a program, you're using your mouse most of the time. And when you're using your mouse, there is certain disconnection between your brain and the mouse cursor, because like you are moving your hand, but your hand is not directly touching the screen, for instance. So when the computer doesn't work very well, it's kind of okay. Like if the computer is laggy, or like the cursor is not moving at the same pace as your hand, it's kind of okay. Like your brain, I think that it understands that that this is a computer, it's not reality very good. This happened to change a lot if you are using your phone. If your phone is laggy, for instance, if you are like moving or scrolling in your phone and it's laggy, it's starting to get more and more painful. It's like, this shouldn't be like that. It should be as smooth as reality, right? And the problem here is that when you are creating a virtual reality thing, a virtual reality app, you are trying to trick your brain into, hey, this is real. This is your reality. So any lag on the interaction, any drop in the frame rate, any problem with this sensation of reality, it will completely break the experience. And if you are creating a hand tracking game, like hands is what we use to interact with the world. So we expect the world to respond to our hands in a similar way. And if the world doesn't respect that rules, then it's going to be broken. So creating a hand tracking experience is extremely complicated because it has to work really well, as good as the real thing, as good as reality. This is a massive task, especially if your game is relying on this like 100%, because we don't support controllers, it's just hands. We are now starting to think about how to support controllers in PC, because like we are going to support the index controllers that have hand tracking somehow. But like in the first case, like in the case of Oculus, we didn't use anything. It's just your hands. So it was super tricky because hand tracking has a lot of limitations. Like if something obscure, like if one hand obscure the other hand, they will disappear. If you move your hands very quickly, they will disappear. Or if you move your fingers very quickly, the hand tracking system won't be able to tell you like the real movement. So if we were going to create this kind of game, we had to understand the hand tracking limitations very well and use them very cleverly into our game. And the first thing that we decided, for instance, is that like the user will have to be looking at their hands all the time because that's where the sweet spot is. So if you are looking at your hands, the recognition is going really well. But if you are not looking at your hands, you start having problems. So we designed like all the game around this concept. Another problem that if you have tried to create something using hand tracking, you would probably have found it already, is the lack of interaction language. If you are creating a desktop app, you can use list boxes, buttons, scrolls, windows. Like you have an interaction language that you don't have to explain to your user because he's used to that. Like there are like a bunch of apps before you that use this language, and you can take advantage of that. But in the case of hand tracking, there is nothing. Well, Microsoft have put like a good good amount of effort into starting creating this kind of interaction language in MRTK, and they're doing a really good job on this. But I still think that like there are still way more stuff to research and a lot of things a lot of controls and interactions to create the next step of apps. So for instance, like we don't know nowadays, how do you interact with a list of items? What is a list of items in the MR world? Yes, of course you could just like grab like a normal list in a 2D format in the same way that you have it on a website or in a desktop app and just put it there. But when you try to interact with that, it doesn't feel as good as something more natural. So we wanted to explore a little bit about it. Like we wanted to create our own way of selecting things among a list of items, for instance. We wanted to do that work. Another problem that you will probably find is the API mess that is out there. There are so many, like, because now we are in the very early stages of the technology. There are so many APIs out there, and they are not compatible among each other, and it's a shit show, pretty much. Right now, like we can see the light at the end of the tunnel because OpenXR is here to kind of like standardize everything. But it will be like in terms of hand tracking, it's still a lot of work, and I'm guessing that like it won't be there at least in the next couple of years or so. So right now you have to deal with crazy APIs, like completely incompatible among each other, a complete shit show. And also, like we were relying on the Oculus hand tracking system, so that means that whenever they updated the system, they were changing our gameplay. And we actually suffered that a few times. Now we're going to be in contact with the Oculus team, and like they will advise us if something is going to change the game. But back in the day, we didn't have that information, and yeah, it was tricky as well. And to me, as a UX designer, the main thing is making it feel good. Like when you are interacting with something, it has to feel good. It's not just about making something that works. It's something you have to make something that is easy and feels natural, especially if it's in hand tracking. So we wanted to focus on these things. And right now, there are two main, I'm going to say, like interaction methods in terms of hand tracking when you're creating a hand tracking thing. That is it, touch and click. That is when you, like, there is a button in front of you and you just like put your finger on the button. And there is also point and click. That is like the air tapping. So if you know about the HoloLens, is this kind of like same interaction model they have. So you just like point with a line, you know, with a ray. You point at something that is very far from you, and you just like click using the air tapping gesture. Yeah, so you have to decide between these two. I am not a big fan of point and click, like air tapping. I think it feels unnatural. And when you use your hands, it's all about feeling more and more natural, feeling more connected to this virtual reality or mixed reality. So I wanted to implement a touch interaction model, so where you could actually like touch things. So we spent some time researching about like how people were going to interact with the app. And I wanted to show you this. This is our main menu. This is the first video that we published in our main menu. This is how you move between different albums. And as you can see, it feels so natural. And this is the kind of interactions that we wanted to have in Unplugged. It's not about like, I don't have to tell you how to air tap on air. It's more about just like, oh, you have this set of songs. So you just like move it with your hands naturally. We spend a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but a good amount of time into making this feel good. But I'm super proud of this. I think that like we are going to find this kind of UI interactions in the apps in the future, rather than what we can find in HoloLens today, that is like point and click. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that these interactions, they feel much better than the other ones. Another important thing when you are creating a VR game is to, like, especially when we were using this touch input method, so that this tap interaction method, is that everything has to be on reach. That means that we will have to design everything directly in 3D, because it's not just about like proposing a UI that is far away from you and it feels like a 2D UI, like you can use in other games. Like we have to actually set up the UI in a way that you could, you know, reach it with your hands without having to move it too much. So in order to do that, we, like, my recommendation is do, like, when you decide your interaction model, like in my case, I went for this touch interaction model. So it's like just like everything, you just put your hands and you grab them, and you know it's very direct. My recommendation is do not use 2D apps exclusively to think about this layout. So it's pretty much don't use Illustrator, don't use just Figma if you are designing a spatial app, because that means that you will be thinking in 2D, and you are not designing a 2D thing. You are designing a 3D spatial thing, and I think that is a very big deal. And if you're a designer, I encourage you a lot to do that, because it's the most important part of this iteration of design, in a way that like you won't be able to provide a good design unless you are in the final medium. So if you're a UI designer and I'm assuming that you are super used to Illustrator or Figma and such, give it a try to other apps that are more focused on virtual reality or mixed reality. I'm going to say two, because I think that there are the two best ones. There are probably like more, but Microsoft Maquette is a free app. This is the one that I worked on, so yes, of course, I'm recommended it. But yeah, like, I think it is a good app. I think that we did a very good job on making an app for you to think in 3D and lay out a UI in seconds, so you can just like put things in seconds using in VR. So you are always working inside of VR, and so therefore you can see what you're doing in 3D, and that is a very big deal. Another one that is really good is Tivori. So yeah, like, they are both similar. Tivori, I would say that it's a bit more advanced in terms of animations, and they are like working super hard on it. They also have now a UI library that is pretty good, so it's even easier to lay out your things. So I would totally recommend you to at least try these apps. I think that Maquette is free. And I think that Tivori has a free version and a paid version. I'm not entirely sure. I usually use Maquette because I did it. But yeah, like, please give it a try to one of these or any other app that allow you to create in the real medium. It is a very big deal. If you have a company and you have some designers that are, showing you designs in Illustrator, encourage them not to use Illustrator right away and start thinking in 3D, because like your app will massively change. I have a really nice video here that I would like to show you about, like, that illustrates this thing. So imagine that you are creating a very simple MR app. Oh, okay. Okay. So imagine that you're creating a very simple MR app like this, right? Like an IKEA app. And this is like a 2D kind of UI, very similar to the HoloLens UI that you can find in many HoloLens apps nowadays. And yeah, you can do a lot of things to make this look good. But at the end of the day, this is pretty much like a floating 2D UI, like a tablet, like next to this real table. And that's okay, but I think that we can get so much farther. I think that we can play with different Cs, for instance. Like, now you can see that, like, you have a different visual hierarchy because, like, they are layout in a different C. But you can get more than just flat planes. You can also add some width, some thickness to every single item, and suddenly it feels so much better. It feels so much real. But you don't have to get into that. Like, yeah, you can explore more and more 3D stuff, adding, like 3D icons and 3D crumbs and things. You can also curve your UIs. Yeah, like, there are like way more possibilities. And I understand that this is obviously way more complicated to do. And in terms of performance, it will also be a problem. But I'm talking just like in terms of design, this is probably where we are going to be in a few years. So it's like this kind of semi 2D apps that take advantage to the 3D world. And yeah, I think that this is super interesting. We should totally think about this kind of ideas. Oh, hold on. Yeah. So game design. Oof. Yeah. So game design. We didn't want to be just another Guitar Hero. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to take advantage of all of VR. So it's like crowd interactions, different mini games, interacting with your guitar, and we did like a few things, like a few mini games inside the game. This is just a few. There are way more. Yeah, I should have included here the crowd interaction where you can just like move your hands to the crowd, and you will see like 1,000 people moving your hands, like moving their hands as well, following you. It feels really good. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so my recommendation in any project would be like, don't get too crazy adding features. Get like the simpler idea as possible, because especially like like if you're a small company, everything is complicated. Like even a simpler idea, it's very, very complicated. Like in order to make it into a product, simple ideas are like it's super complicated. So my recommendations, I'm not sure if there are like many of you there that want to create a game, but if you do, go for the simpler idea possible. Don't try to create another online world, like like another metaverse, like you and your friend. That won't work, and you will lose money on time. It's just like create something as simple as possible with a simple idea. Just make sure that that idea is good enough to support the whole game, because yeah, it's everything is very complicated. Polishing your product is 90% of the budget. That's absolutely true. And I cannot stress this enough. If you're creating a game or you are creating an app that uses hand tracking, test a lot. Like test on everyone that you can. If you don't have a beta program, have a beta program, because like there are so many different hands out there. People use their hands in many different ways. They have like hand gestures that are completely different. Like in our case, for instance, there is one gestures where you can tune your guitar using the tuner key on your guitar, and some people do that, some people do that, some people do that. They like we use hands in different ways, so there is no correct way, and you have to test like crazy. Iteration is the only way to get proper design. That is that's my motto. Yeah, in our game we have a tutorial, because we thought like at some point the gameplay and people using their hands, they were not used to that, and we wanted them to understand the game properly. So we created a tutorial on video that is it shows on a poster, and there is like this guy that is like a real rock star. It's called Satchel from Seal Panther. We actually got to hire him, and this is a little take of the shooting. Um, and it has worked really well. We could have done something easier, but we wanted the tutorial to be really fun and and really creative in a way. And yeah, it was awesome. I'm going faster because like I'm running out of time. So and I want you to have some time for questions. Music licensing. Okay. In the beginning, we were thinking about having indie bands. Basically, we were thinking very small. But when Vertigo Games got into the project, like our expectations kind of exploded, and they insisted in having famous music. And we like in the beginning of the project, we would never have even dreamed about having this set list that we have now, that have Al J, the Dandy Warhols, Offsprings, Garbage, Wizard, Tenacious D, T-Rex. It's just like it's crazy. It's like a dream come true. But this was extremely hard to make. It was, I would say that was like the hardest thing on the game. Music licensing is a huge task. It's very expensive. Like you have to hire the right people. Actually, our licensing angel is Sergio. Actually is he was in charge of the music licensing for Guitar Hero as well, and he helped us massively into actually like finding like all the managers and all the people that have some rights on all these songs. And it was amazing to have in the team. So yeah, like the way we did it, like we had a list of like 100 different songs, and then we tried to find like the managers and everyone like that was involved in the song, and try to get a deal with them one by one. That's like hundreds of people. And yeah, some of them were extremely expensive. Some of them just like they didn't want to for whatever reason. But yeah, we were so lucky to actually, like have these ones that were, well, like most of them are just like our first choice. And actually, like regarding Tenacious D, Roadie was really hard for us to get. Like I'm a big fan of Tenacious D, and the problem with Roadie is that when we got the song, it had a lot of profanity. It was crazy. Like every 4 songs is just like swearing. And the thing is, like we are Peggy 12, so we couldn't have the song in because it has a lot of swearing. So somehow we managed to make Tenacious D to re-record the song without all the swearing, and that was amazing. Yeah, this is something that they did for us, and it's mind blowing. Yeah, on other things, like you have to market your game, like put a big chunk of the budget into marketing. You have to spend money to make money. It is extremely important. Luckily we had the Vertigo marketing team behind us that like they have been supporting us like a lot. We also had a few music brands that reached out and they wanted to participate on the game. So it, like brands like Schecter, that like the guitar makers, and Marshall, and other brands. It's been amazing to have them on board. In terms of sales, like, well, I think that this is pretty obvious. Like the game is doing very well. And I'm not authorized to disclose all the sales, but I wanted to show you this graph that is pretty much how the sales have been. So in the first week, like we had a huge amount of sales. That was amazing. But like on the time, since you like get dropped from the top charts and things like that, and the new on the stores, then your game is gonna drop a little bit. And right now we are like stabilized in a good, in a good number of sales a week. We usually sell more on the weekends, and and I think I'm going just like to finish here and give you some space to questions.
Yeah, I think we have no questions yet, but that's why I let you speak as well.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I think this was a great story, and also for the community, a great thing, yeah, because you told all the journey with your app and pitfalls that you may take, could take, yeah. And I think it's also valid for other applications, yeah, not only for games.
Sure.
I like the story with the hand tracking. If you look somewhere else, yeah, and it's not working,
yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to talk to tell our story in a way that, like, I think that a lot of there's a lot of technical information out there about how to do stuff, but not so many stories about like, hey, how this thing started from scratch to what it is now. And we are obviously not like a huge game, but I would say that we are becoming more and more important and more famous in the Oculus, and we hope that in the future that it will grow even more. So yeah, that was the story.
I have to say many thanks. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
See you maybe next time.
Sure. Okay. Sure. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.